Troopers. Well, I was working on the Westland Whirlwind, and I'm not real happy with the way the paint job's looking. The undercoat, the gray, the primer, and the gray are fine, okay. The underbelly looks all right. But when I put the green on, the paint that I had been thinned for the airbrush, but I'm missing a part to my badger, the trigger, and actually one of the needles, although I have other needles. So I ordered those for $11.88 plus shipping. Not a big deal. But until they get here, I thought, well, you know what? Given the small scale, no one's going to notice if I don't feather the edge. So I thought I'll just go ahead and hand paint it. But unfortunately, the olive drab I have was thinned out for the airbrush. So when I went ahead and hand painted it, even though I put two coats on, as you can tell, it didn't leave an even coat, which is, if you try to brush apply paints, we all know that are thin for the airbrush, they tend to leave a lot of thin spots. The brush strokes show worse. So I have a couple of options. At first I thought, well, it kind of looks like a poor man's weathering. I was like, no, weathering does not follow a predictable streak pattern like that. So then I thought, well, when I put the decals on, it's going to cover a lot of it up. And they're like, no, I'm going to know. This just isn't that great. And TD sent me this, so it deserves the full max treatment. Okay, maybe it deserves better than that. But anyway, so I have a couple of options. I could try to rattle can it, but a lacquer over an acrylic, probably not the brightest idea. And I could use the big spray gun, tape it off, lower the pressure. And I've been able to get fairly good results that way. It's a lot of taping and masking, but or I could just wait until the part for the badger shows up and do it the way I had originally intended to, which is probably what I'm going to do. I had intended for this to be a day build or two, and of course, because I was just so itching to build a model and get started, I did not wait, and I just, sometimes you just got to paint, you just got to build, you got to paint, it's in your blood. So that's what I did. And the canopy came out okay. I just hand painted it, given the tiny scale. It's not bad. I'll probably clean it up a little bit with a toothpick. Nice thing about using acrylics. But still, I'm not unhappy with the model. It had a few minor things as a kit, which you expect from a mid-60s mold. Overall, it's a really cool subject matter. Most of you guys I know have already seen like Ed Nash's 2 videos on the airplane. Came out in the mid to late 30s. It was a contemporary of the Spitfire, and if it had had some decent engines, it had the Merlins, then it would have probably been a great airplane. It was primarily used as a ground pounder. It had those 420mm cannons in the nose, which in the late 30s, it had more firepower than any other fighter plane in the world. And even by late war standards, it was a lot of firepower. I mean, it's kind of stuff they were putting on jets in Korea. So great concept. Pilots loved the airplane. Just apparently was let down by those engines. I forget, it was the Kestrel engine. In fact, Ed Nash actually dedicated 2 videos to this airplane. The first one was just a short rundown on the airplane, but later on he kind of reevaluated and said, in a way though, if it had had the Merlins, it probably never would have gone into production because they needed them for the Spitfires. And being a twin engine airplane, you could build 2 Spitfires essentially for the cost of 1 Whirlwind. And after the war, they came up with an airplane. It was basically this concept of an airplane with the Merlins, and it was a heck of an airplane. But of course, by then, jets were the thing. So a lot of people, even though this airplane did see squadron service, it was never the airplane it could have been, but through no fault of the designers. Those were the engines they had. And still, for the low altitude attack roll and everything, the engines were unreliable, but when the plane was working, it was a force to be reckoned with. And again, if it had the proper engines, it probably would have really been something, but only so much money, only so much aluminium, and only so many workers to build them. So there you go. Kind of could have been the British P-38, or so a lot of people feel, one of the great what ifs. Anyway, so I'll probably wait for the parts to show up. So I'll putty off or tape off the wing, use the small brush where I can get in close, and just to put an even coat on that camo, and then I'll decal it. I'm using the gray and green paint scheme, which I have right here. TD apparently picked the other paint scheme, judging by all the colors that he already had labeled on it. This will be number 137 Squadron in Matlask, RAF Matlask, June 42. And I don't have to look up and see where that squadron was based. But anyway, I've never heard of RAF Matlask before. Oh, also, quick shout out to everybody. Thanks for all the guys who responded. Steve's Model Mania called me right away when I posted yesterday's video and told me those extra set of mufflers were the resonators. And like I suspected, they were there to give it that throaty sound. A bunch of other people told me that. So I knew you guys would know because you're awesome. Well, guys, take care of yourselves. Unfortunately, got to go back to work in a day or two. So I'll keep you posted. And as always, Model On.